Well, hello boys and girls. I know the videos have been coming a little bit slowly lately, and here's why. For a long time I used this software called CyberLink Power Director. And it worked okay for a little while, and then it's funny, the more I used it, the longer I used it, the slower it got, and the more often it would just say, it would shut down. It would do this thing where it would say, Power Director has stopped working. That's all it would tell me. I couldn't find the reason why. I loaded a registry checker. I cleaned out my registry. I defragged my disk. I did all kinds of ran virus scan after virus scan. I offloaded all the stuff off of my hard drive onto an external hard drive. Nothing would work. So I hopped on the internet and started checking, and it turns out this Power Director is one of the more unstable video editing software programs. I mean, there's lots of folks out there that have had the same problem as I've had, and all the way back several versions of it, back several generations. So I said, you know what, that's not going to work for me. I've had it with that. I don't, it's like a car. If a car makes me walk one time, I'll forgive it and I'll fix whatever the problem was and I'll live with it. Twice, the car goes. If the car makes me walk twice and it's not due to neglect on my part, I get rid of the car within 2 or 3 weeks. I can't deal with that. The same thing with this Power Director. I got real tired of it shutting down right in the middle of things. If I didn't save every 3 or 4 minutes, I would risk losing stuff, and I did lose some stuff. I didn't lose the raw video, but I lost the editing I had done. So out it goes. In comes a much better, in fact, more popular software that a lot of semi-professionals and even some real pros are using. It's called Adobe Premiere Pro. I got the Premiere Pro 2017 CC, that Creative Cloud thing. In other words, that means that it's a subscription product, and I can live with that because I really didn't feel like laying out $300 or $400 in one shot for this. So I can try it out for a few months. If I don't like it, I just can it. But I really do like it. I've been spending a lot of time learning it, and there's quite a learning curve. I mean, if you're studying Adobe products, the learning curve goes off like this. But once you learn one Adobe product, this is what I'm hearing, then you pretty well know all of them well enough to get by. So I'm learning this Premiere Pro, and doggone it, it's a pretty good program. It's nice and stable. I've heard that it's finicky here and there, but I've got a really good, strong computer, and it's not giving me any trouble, and I'm having fun using it. That brings me to the next thing that's eaten up a little bit of time for me lately, and that I did finally decide to get a new computer. So I've got a pretty stout gaming computer. It's a Dell product, Windows 10, blah, blah, blah. For those of you that are into computers, i7, a Core i7 processor and all that. It's only got 16 gigabytes of RAM, and the hard drive is a slow boat from China hard drive. It's a 5400 RPM 1 terabyte hard drive. I did throw a solid state drive into the thing, but still I wanted better. So what I ordered was this Lenovo ThinkPad P70 with, the works. This thing has got 32 gigs of RAM. Now I could get 64, but I got 32. I figure that's going to work for me. 32 gigs of ECC RAM. It's got this awesome Xeon processor, a 1 terabyte solid state drive, and a 1 terabyte secondary solid state drive. And then I also have a hard drive. I think it's a 1 terabyte hard drive too. So this thing is loaded with memory. It also has a CD-ROM player, or a CD-DVD player, drive that the Dell I was using did not have. So this thing has got the works, and it has a nice docking station because I carry this laptop around with me everywhere I go. And I get really tired of plugging and unplugging all the cables, and I often wonder, am I wearing out these connectors? And I do have a computer that has a couple of worn out USB connectors, so they don't work quite right. So this docking station is great. You bring your computer and you drop it in, and you press the button, it's locked in place. That's going to be pretty nifty. So that computer shipped from Hong Kong yesterday. It will be here on Thursday, and I'm pretty excited, man. I'm going to load the Premiere Pro up on this thing. I'm not even going to bother with the Power Director. That stays off. I'm going to load some other Adobe software on there, some Photoshop, and I'm thinking about getting After Effects so I can play around, because I've got a growing hobby in videography, period, aside from the radio stuff. So I want to kind of build this thing up into a really super machine that I can use for anything. And my daughter is a model, and she's experienced at being in front of the camera, and she has promised me that she would spend some time with me and let me practice photography while she kind of does her modeling thing a little bit and shows me how to approach people with the camera and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool that I have a daughter in an industry that I really am fascinated by. And she's an actress too, so she's spent time in front of a movie camera as well, and so she's going to show me some things on how to do some really nice videography, and she's familiar with editing software, so she's going to help me out with some stuff. So I got a lot of exciting things going on. It has all taken away a little bit of bench time from me. That's all right. I'm going to be getting back to the bench pretty hard here in the next few days because I've got to get that Stuart Warner done for the refinishing shop I'm working for. And I've got a lot of video shot already. I'm about halfway done through that radio, but you haven't seen any of it. This is going to be the first installment of that radio. I think it's a 1934 Stuart Warner model 1262, and it uses the R126A chassis. And I've got a schematic for it, and I've done some work on it. I'll show you some of that in this video. Basically, we're going to start with the disassembly today, and then we'll jump on in afterward. I'm about halfway through recapping it, so I'm going to show you some of the interesting stuff when it comes to recapping. I'm sure as heck not going to bore you to death with all the details of recapping. You can see that on 100 other videos. We'll let you go ahead and see the interesting stuff on this radio. I figure this series, because it was a working radio to begin with and it didn't need a lot of corrective work done to it, I figure this radio is probably going to be a 4-video series, maybe 5, I don't know. I do have a confession to make. I promised that I would show the disassembly of the radio from the cabinet. And indeed, I shot video for it, but that was one of the catastrophes that happened related to Power Director. I had edited video, and I had the video prepared, and the Power Director, I don't know what went on in my head. I hadn't saved for quite a while. Power Director shut down suddenly. I lost a whole lot of stuff, and in the process of trying to rebuild it, I accidentally deleted some videos. As I was moving them off of my external hard drive, I deleted some that were the disassembly. So I'm sort of stuffed there. You've seen a couple photographs. I'm going to try and make a habit of showing disassembly as well as assembly. But again, on this radio, it's just going to be assembly only. Now, this is a little tabletop, so the assembly or disassembly is not much on this radio. There's not going to be much to talk about. So that's not entirely bad. I'm getting ready to do it's called a Kuba radio. It's a German radio, very similar to a Grundig or Telefunken. I started that thing long before I started doing videos. That radio, I'm getting very close. I'm doing it sort of as a gift for a friend who suffered a tragedy. So another friend of mine and I are together working on this beautiful Kuba radio for this guy, and we're going to give it to him at our work as a gift. And the thing is, it's been a long time since I really worked on it, so I will jump in. I've already done the radio chassis, and I'm working on the record player. When I get back to the record player, I'm going to pick up a very short video series on that because it's a really cool Philips record player. And then we'll go on into installing that into the cabinet, which is quite an involved process, and I'd be willing to bet you that no one else has done that on YouTube. And there are a few out there of this cabinet style, so it'd be good to see. So without chattering your ear off, guys, I'm going to go ahead and dive into this video, this Stuart Warner video. I just wanted to kind of prep you for where things are and what's going on. I want to thank everybody, all the new subscribers who've jumped in. I've been getting a lot of excellent comments, a lot of excellent questions, and a lot of excellent suggestions. And I don't know if it's evident in my replies to those suggestions, but I really value them. And I don't have an ego in this game. So if I'm doing something that you see a better way to do, man, I'm all ears, because I'm in this to learn. I'm like everybody else. If I were some kind of guru, some kind of wizard, I might have an ego about it. But I'm really not. I'm in it just like all of you are, to learn. We learn from each other. This is a community. And so I want you to let me know if you see stuff I can do better, or if you see stuff that you've tried and works for you. So let's get into this Stuart Warner. We're going to start right into the disassembly, and we'll get moving on this radio. Sound good? All right, let's go. Alright, I need to separate this speaker from the chassis so that I don't have to be handling the speaker all the time. I think all I need to do is take off this cover from the output transformer and disconnect the wires at the terminals. So let's get this thing off of here. And of course I'll put the cover back on when I'm finished, and I'll number the wires so I don't lose track. But this video is also my record of this. Alright, we'll grab a pen and we'll number these. So this will be number 1 on the left, number 3 on the right, and that'll be 2. Okay. I don't know if I'll wind up replacing these or not. They don't look bad to me, so I think I'll be okay there. Okay, great. This solder melts nicely. A lot of times with these older radios, the solder is real difficult to melt. I hope this is a predictor of what I'm going to find in the radio. Now I can put this speaker somewhere safe. The speaker is in beautiful condition. Absolutely beautiful. I almost forgot to put this thing back. Since I've heard the radio play, I have no doubt that the speaker is fine as far as the voice coil and the field coil, so we're good there. Okay, we'll leave that speaker cable there for now. This should be replaced. It's pretty, it's starting to get tattered a little bit. Looks like it's been spliced here. I don't like that on a radio, so that's got to go. There's a lot of cables coming off of this radio, and I'm not sure what they're all for. Here's another one right here. Now this has got 2 conductors like it's an electrical cord. But then this one here has got a plug on it too, so I'll have to see underneath to know what's going on. What do we got here? So I think this is an antenna. Ah, that's odd. If you look at what we have set up here, this is pretty strange. I should have noticed there was no antenna on this. So actually, that computer cable looks like one. This is going off to the band switch, and then this is going off to what looks to me to be like an antenna transformer. So yeah, I'm sure that's what this is, and this needs to go away, of course. I will leave it there for now just as a reference, but I won't. This will not be what I install in the radio. If I have to, I'll put a terminal block on this thing so that you can screw an antenna, proper antenna on it. This won't work. And of course, you have the electrical cord on this side over here. The electrical cord is, oh, where does it go? It comes in the back of the radio. Yep, there it is down there. So that'll have to come out too. Again, I'm not going to worry about it. It is frayed. I will cut it off. In fact, I'll cut it off right now. The reason I do that so early is because I don't like to fight with the cords all the time. I like them out of my way. Okay, that's done. So we'll put this in the box with the other parts that we take off of it. Alright, so I guess I had you off camera. I cut the antenna. This is an antenna cord right here, you know, the antenna wires, and I just removed the cord that they were attached to, which is over here. Alright. Now, the whole idea with this first step I do with every radio is to get all of the fragile stuff off of it so I don't have to worry about damaging the fragile stuff. The tubes, somebody has marked all these tubes, but I'll get a schematic for this So I'm not going to worry about it too much, but I will check if they marked them correctly, because then if they haven't marked them correctly, I'll mark them with the correct tube numbers so that I know what's there in case I can't find a good schemo. This radio, this vintage, are usually pretty easy to do without a schemo if you have to. Okay, this says 6D6 and that says 6C6. It's very interesting. Now I played this radio just the way it came. So I'm going to mark down what was on the radio, not what I think is supposed to be on the radio. Okay. So this said 6D6. I think I'll write this on every location. I can always wipe this off. I like these tube shields a lot. $66. Now I like radios that have a lot of tubes with grid caps, because when you're doing alignment, a lot of times the grid caps is where you go and it makes it easy. 75 tube, very cool. So 42. This 76. This will be an 80, I'm sure. 80. Kind of like to get this dial off of here. I'd like to get this whole assembly off. I need to figure out how it works. So this here is not part of this. So I imagine this part here comes off separately, if it comes off at all. It's a slider, so it changes with the band switch. I'd love to have this, take this whole thing off of here all in one shot. Looks like it attaches. Might be screws on here. There's some little 1/4-inch screws right in here, and I think that will enable me to get this part off of here, and I'll go from there. Let me just see. They're not so easy to get to though. Well, seems like that's how it comes off. I'm going to need a 1/4-inch wrench to get that. Well, maybe not. Yeah. Okay. This will be fun putting this back on. It's got a light bulb on it. I might have to clip the wire. I'm not sure yet. Screw number 1. This one over here is the tough one. So maybe that one gets to be the last one removed and the first one installed. Okay, yeah. Yeah, that makes it easier. Installing it might get tricky. Well, it's got to come apart. I will have to get that tuning condenser off because it's loose. So let's see, I loosen this. Okay, that's the screwdriver will work for that. Okay, what's holding this down? Well, I actually just think it's this right here. But I don't want to mess with this band switch. So this mounts just like a potentiometer, like a volume control. There's like this gland nut here, and then this threaded section of cylinder, or you know, kind of like big shaft. So it looks to me this selector knob, and if I want to take this off, this selector knob, and then I have to loosen this guy here that connects this little gear, and then loosen that nut there. So let me get this little knob off of here first. Okay, got the knob. Now I need to get that guy loose. Let me try a pliers in case it's already kind of loose, but I doubt it. Oh, it is. Beautiful. I won't be able to put it on that way, but okay, it seems like that's the score. That's the way it's working. Sorry I'm blocking your view, guys. I've never done one of these before. When I clean that up, it'll go together a lot easier. Right now it's all full of grime. Alright, now I'm seeing it. Okay, so this guy here, I guess this knob has to come off of here too. Good Lord, I didn't intend to take all this apart yet. Okay, there we go. I didn't put an index mark on this thing. I probably should have. Okay. Well, this is a stubborn little thing, isn't it? I'm not getting that. Like there's something that wants to stop it from coming up. I don't feel any burrs. Maybe right there a little bit, but nothing that would be that serious. There we go. Oh, great. Well, I hope I got it all on video, what it's supposed to look like. Not me, before I damage this bugger, let me desolder that light bulb too. When I put this all back together, it'll go back together easily. I'll make sure of that. Well, maybe not all the solder is going to be easy. This solder seems to be a pain. Well, I'll clean that up later. Okay, this wire that's sticking out of the front of the chassis is a black wire attached to the light bulb, the center post terminal. Make sure we don't lose track of where that band switch is supposed to be. So something else is holding that on there. Something else is holding that on there nice and rigid, which is nice. Not sure what. I'll sort it out. Maybe it's just all the wires. There. Might as well. Boy, that's tight. Those are all tight. Okay. Let me bag some things up and then I'll restart the video. It looks to me like the smart way to get this tuning condenser off of here is to remove it as an assembly with this section right here. I'm not sure how all this comes apart, but it sure does look like this bracket here, this bracket right here, mounts with some screws to the floor of the chassis from the underside. There are 3 of them, and they all look like they come in from the underside. So what I need to do first off is I can leave this grid wire on here because that can just go with it and I can deal with it later. I'll need to disconnect the grounds. Usually it's easier to disconnect the grounds and the signal wires from this, from the underside. But let's take a look real quick. It's a little hard to see from your perspective, but from mine, I can see that there actually might not be too bad from right here. See if you can see those. There's one right there at the back of the frame and one right here at the second frame plate from the front. So I don't know if I can get that off of there with just by heating it up and desoldering, and that may be hard to put it back on once I get it off, so I'll take a real quick look at it. It actually looks like it won't be too bad, so I'll do that. And then once I get those loose, let's see, well, I'm not sure what will be involved from it. Oh yeah, it'd be real easy underneath. You can see there's just some screws here that are very easy to get to. 3 of them, so that I think this will be okay. So let me go ahead and remove the solder from these plates in the very front. Okay, let me go ahead and mark these plates so I know which wire goes to which. It should be obvious, but you never know. I might replace the wire. 1 and 2. And then I'll put little bits of tape on the wire. When I would do a car, like if I would, you know, have to pull an engine to change a clutch or something like that, I was always really careful to number every single thing that I did. Like if I pulled a hose, it got a number, and all the numbers were sequential, so that I could go when I finished the job and was getting ready to put it all back together, I could just work backwards. And it was really useful. The most recent one I did was a couple of years ago, but my wife used to have a Saturn, and I had to replace the clutch in her Saturn. And it was a real useful thing because I had never worked on it before. It had been a really reliable car, so I never had to fix it. And so I was really unfamiliar with how to work on it. You know, with what went where when you worked on it. And this car had a hydraulic clutch, and it was so weird. The slave cylinder on the system came as an assembly with the connecting hose from the master to the slave. And there was no way to bleed that slave cylinder. You had to bleed the whole assembly. It was very, very odd. It was a neat car, but you could tell it was definitely built with cost involved, because in every way that they could, they saved money. I think that's one of the biggest. In General Motors' recent history is replete with mistake after mistake. And I think one of their more recent mistakes was to unload the Saturn line. That's just stupid. I feel the same way about the Pontiac line. Both of those lines were cars with their own sort of niche, and I think that General Motors really let go of something special when they let go of both of those. Instead, in their infinite wisdom, they keep both Buick and Cadillac, both of which are luxury model lines, and you know, it's a lot less of a stretch to think that the same person that would buy a nice Cadillac would buy or a nice Buick, or vice versa, than it is to think that somebody who would buy a Chevy would buy a Saturn. I'm not getting it. And I know that they're probably thinking that Pontiac was redundant with Chevy, but I don't think that's the case at all. The trouble often is getting them back on, but I can usually manage it. The wires are in good shape, and they're mounted to the band switch, and I'd really rather remove them here than from the band switch. Okay, now I'll have to clean off that solder from this contact once I'm ready to put this back in. Okay, it takes a fair bit of heat to get those loose. There's a bunch of solder on them. Before I dig too deeply into this chassis, I thought I'd better show you a little bit of what it looks like. This is pretty standard. We have your basic paper and wax caps and dog bone resistors. Lots of room to work. Very different than that Philco I just did. But even the band switch is easy to get to. That's really nice. This is a well-designed radio. Lots of room around the tube sockets. Potentiometers are easy to get to. Really, there is nothing in this radio that's tough to get to. I love it when radio manufacturers would put the antenna coils and the oscillator coils in cans just like the IF. I think that makes for a nice, simple layout underneath. And it also makes it easier to work on the radio without worrying about damaging those coils. See, it's very unlikely that I'm going to do anything that will damage those things. But in that Philco, they were sticking out there all the time, and I had to be aware of them. Let me show you how the tuning drive works on this. When you turn the tuning knob, it operates this little knurled wheel right there, right where my finger is. Okay, that knurled wheel, it sits up against this wheel here. And I'm not sure what this material is on this wheel right here. It feels almost like a plastic, but I'll have to find out. It might just be hard rubber. But then that wheel is on the same shaft as this rubber wheel here, and this rubber is pretty hard, so they must both be rubber. And so it turns that shaft. The knurled wheel turns the little hardened rubber wheel, which is on the same shaft with a little pair of pinch discs, kind of like, you know, we've seen it in other radios before. I think I did a Westinghouse that had that. Western Air Patrol maybe had that, I don't remember. But I know that this is also very similar to what you would see in the tensioner of a sewing machine, two friction discs pushed together. Well, they grip this big wheel here, and this big wheel is on the shaft for the tuning condenser. So you turn this knob, okay, you see that, you turn the knob, it turns those rubber wheels that are on that shaft via the knurled wheel right there, knurled disc right there. This is the coarse tuning right here. And then when you pull this out, that smaller knurled wheel rides on the big disc here, and that is looks like a fine tune, you know, a vernier tuning. So I don't want to operate it too much because these discs this rubber is just coming apart on me. So I'm going to go ahead and let this be now. But I will have to take both of those rubber wheels off of there. I want to be able to set this chassis down without damaging this assembly right here. So I need to get this off of here, or at least get this wheel off of here. And it looks like this thing here can be kind of moved out of the way. So the best way I can see to get this wheel off of here is to disengage this from the wheel, and then the wheel should come off. So I think to make that happen, I think I need to loosen the wheel and turn it, and then this will pop out of there. So let's try it. And the reason it'll pop out of there, you can see there's a little round part right here. There we go. Piece of cake that slipped out of there. Boy, that tuning condenser is... Oh, I see. I'm in the friction disc still. So, I don't know if I can get out of the friction disc without bending things. Let's try. There we go. Nice and straight. Now it's out of there. And I do have a witness mark where the set screw was, so I should be okay with that. But it should be pretty obvious anyway when I assemble it. Now this thing here will just sort of tuck out of the way. I won't worry about it right now as long as I don't set it down on top of it. Now I can flip this chassis over, and you know, it won't hurt this tuning condenser frame for things to sit on this frame. It will be okay. And it won't hurt these either. I'll put a piece of wood under this and a piece of wood under this transformer. It should be good. Now that simplifies matters for working on this chassis. I don't like working on chassis that are vertical. It drives me crazy. Okay, so what I have are the signal wires coming down from that tuning condenser. I have to figure out which ones go where. I don't know how much you can see, but it's hard for me to see with all the lights glaring on this. When the chassis is silver like this, it's real hard to see with the lights glaring back at me. So there's one right there. I'll have to put a number on the band switch. There is one. That's a ground wire. There is one right here that attaches to the band switch right there. And then there's one that comes up from the front of the thing, goes all the way over here to, well, it's probably the antenna coil. So I haven't printed a schemo on this yet. I've probably got in a hurry, but my computer's busy uploading a video. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect things. This will be number 3 right here on the band switch. This will be number, let's see, number 4 will be on this second wafer of the band switch down there where this one's attached. And number 5 will be over here where the tuning condenser attaches the antenna coil. This is sometimes the hardest part of the job, guys, getting all this stuff marked. The actual electronics work's not that bad. The reason that I usually have pretty good luck when I fire up a radio is because I take a lot of time to do this garbage. It's not my favorite part of the job, but if I don't do it, then I wind up spending a lot of time troubleshooting. So all the wires, every wire in this radio is black. I don't know if you noticed that, except for a couple that are replacements. So doesn't that make things special? I just now caught on to that. I'll say this black wire or that black wire. Well, shit, every wire is black. So this is going to be fun. You know, it's funny. Some radios have one thing about them that's really well designed, another part of it that's garbage, and then it's a whole different set of well designed versus garbage for another radio. If I were going to be replacing the wires, which I don't think I'm going to need to, they're in pretty good shape, then I would just clip them and leave the stubs there, but I don't want to do that. These wires are already too darn short to work with. So I try to leave the same shape in the wire if I can, so that when I put it back in, it kind of gives me an idea of how it's supposed to go. There we go. This one's going to be a real treat to put back in. I can see that. I might have to, while it's all apart, solder another wire to that spot there and bring it up through the hole. You have to be really careful when you're working around these band switches too, because it's real easy to break them. Finally, let's get this one off the coil. I think I have them all. Okay, let's loosen this tuning condenser up so we can drop it out of there. Yikes. All this to get to these grommets. That's all. The tuning condenser itself is in really nice condition, but the grommets suck. Now, I guess I could just lift it up a little and replace those grommets, but that's risky. And the wires are really short. I don't know that I'd even have the wire length to do it. Okay, so what you got so far, okay, there was a little washer under this machine screw. Okay, just a little machine screw. There was a little, like a star washer. And then there's this flat washer that goes after the star washer on the machine screw. And then this spacer goes in the grommet. It works like those shouldered bushings on that Philco I did to keep you from squishing that grommet too much, okay? So there's 4 parts for every little, for every point on this little triangle of this tuning condenser. Since this grommet broke apart, I might as well show you. So I might as well show you once more. See, there's the little lock washer. I'll probably use a star washer there. Takes up less space, and lock washers are usually good for, you're supposed to use them once, and once they're compressed, you're not supposed to use them again. And I don't keep a lot of lock washers around. And of course that little bushing goes through the grommet, and then there's that, it's a rather thick washer. This flat washer is kind of thick. And then this lock washer is actually kind of thick too. But that whole assembly goes like that. Sometimes I think they made this stuff on purpose to make it hard for the poor slob who had to fix it. Larry from Back to the Future Radios came up with what I think might be the real answer to that, is that all of the engineers for the radio companies would gather up in a pub, and they'd all maybe they'd have a drinking game to see who could come up with the most difficult to work on radios, and the guy that won got free drinks. I don't know. All right. Now, I'm going to feed these wires out of here. Okay, there we go. One tuning condenser. Kind of a complicated looking arrangement. See, I might put new wires here, these are a little bit, these aren't bad though. These have been lacquered. This is lacquered cloth, and that stuff usually lasted pretty well. Alrighty. Now, really what I'm going to do is just dive into replacing caps on this thing. There is not a lot of cleaning to do or anything. I've got 2 electrolytics right here, big cans that are going to have to be replaced. I need the Skimo to do that. bunch of tube sockets. Usually dog bones are bad, but you know, sometimes I'll run into a radio where every dog bone is good, and it just might be that they were better quality, who knows, but I'll leave them be. I usually leave the micas alone. This may not be a mica, it's a mica mold, which might mean that this is a film capacitor inside of, you know, like a paper and wax inside a plastic box. There's like this big one here might be that too. I've never seen one of these before actually. This is a double. I think this might be mica and it's a double, but I don't know, I'm kind of doubting that. I'll take a look at it. So, okay, enough jabbering. I'm just going to get to work. You don't really need to watch me replace caps. That's pretty easy stuff. When I get to some more interesting things, I will show you. This radio probably won't require as many parts as that Philco did, simply because this radio is in much better condition. So, we'll get back to work now. Alrighty guys, this video has been way too long. We're going to wrap it up now, and next time we'll go a little further into the disassembly and we'll begin the actual repair of this chassis. Hopefully the next video will be a lot shorter, but I did want to get you off to a good start on this Stewart Warner. There's a lot that needs to be done, and a lot of it was in the disassembly. The actual electronics work won't be too bad. So it is a hot Saturday night on the 5th of August. And we're gonna end this now and come back to it soon. So from your Western Outpost in Salt Lake City, this is Michael, and that's all for now.